And when they do that, depending on which sun system they're in and the size of the planet, these people would grow to a variety of sizes, anywhere from 50 centimeters tall up to sometimes 12 meters tall. Now, 12 meters tall, some of those apparently had come to Earth from time to time, and 12 meters, my gosh, that's considered a giant. A meter is roughly about 3 feet, so you've got people 30, 35 feet tall here. So if a local Earth human being, if he's 5 foot tall and he suddenly sees someone that's over 30 feet tall, he's going to be impressed. You know, he'll probably get out of the way quite easily too. The ancient Lyrians, when they came here, began experimenting with the local Earth human beings. And this is where a lot of the unusual mixtures and folk stories came from. Actually, this is where the monkey came from. The Plejadians told us that out of the experiments that the Lyrians were doing with Earth human beings, they were mating people with animals and so forth, and that's where the monkey actually came from. The Darwin theory is wrong. We did not evolve from the monkey. It was the other way around. They also created a lot of other mutations that we hear about, like Neanderthals and the Peking human being and so forth, and the beings in Africa. There's the phrase Evas, by the way, means bearer. When the Lyrians were mixing the people with the animals, the old Lyrian word for a person who bears that thing is called an Eva. And that's where that name come. When they were creating Adam and Eve, that's where that actually started. When they were mixing people with animals, they came up with the Yeti, or what we think of as the Bigfoot. And that was a long time back. When they did that, they were violating, of course, certain spiritual and natural laws to do that, and they created these unusual creatures. The word Adam in the old Lyrian language meant an earth human. That was the word they had for us local guys, or the earth human, was an Adam. And that's where we got Adam and Eve. That's where it actually started. They created quite a few of these Yeti-type beings, these large experimental beings. One of the interesting things about them is they had a very long lifespan, almost 15,000 years and sometimes. For the most part, though, they were very shy and kind of not cowardly, but they were just, very afraid of things, and they hid out a lot, and they hid underground, and quite a few of them were killed. Semjase told Billy that even though they have a long lifespan, there were 7 of them alive as of 1975, but she didn't expect that we would ever find any of them because for the most part they hide out quite well and they stay out of the way. But it was this mixing of animal and human that the Lyrians did that gave us an awful lot of our old folklore and the Greek mythology and so forth. When we hear stories about giants and Goliaths and so forth, quite often that was nothing more than some ancient Lyrians that were quite tall during that time. Billy had a few other questions, and to kind of get on to another subject now, when he started his contacts, Billy was kind of preoccupied. He used to take a tape recorder and try to get sounds of spirits and different things on tape. He was experimenting with that. And he asked Semjase about this, if there was a spirit's world and if it was possible to do this on tape recording. And she made an attempt, and I'm going to get farther into this on a special set of tapes later in the series. So I'm going to just touch a little bit on what she said there. She said that there is no spirit world, as many people think of it, where you just go to another world where there's this material existence. You don't leave this existence and go into some other spirit world. She actually says what it amounts to is that there are 2 types of matter in the universe. There is coarse matter, which is the solid matter, and there is fine matter, which is energy. That when a spirit leaves the body, we are body and spirit, and when a spirit leaves the body, it really has 2 choices that it can do. It can move into another body, which it does sometimes, or the natural thing is for it to move into this fine matter world. And fine matter world is an energy world. It's not a physical world that you go to. Normally, when you go into the other side, into this fine matter world, there are certain periods of actually you even go through there before you return back in to a physical body in this coarse matter world. Well, at least it was encouraging to find out that they actually do come back. Apparently their science has actually kind of figured that out and nailed it down. So there's some hope there. We are going to come back in some way. If death is caused to an individual, like early in their life they die by accident or they're killed or something like that, Quite often the spirit is confused, does not want to go into the fine matter world because it knows it's not its time, it's not ready to go. And so quite often that spirit will just move right into another physical human being. Now this sounds like a really strange thing, but there are more and more people, even in mainstream fundamental psychology, discovering this phenomena, that a spirit, when it dies, does not want to leave the planet, does not want to leave the physical plane. It moves into another person. That person then is inhabited by two spirits, and obviously there's confusion of spirit. I know there are certain instances where psychiatrists have worked on this, and through hypnosis, Dr. Edith Fiore's work in particular, I've seen her work on people and hypnotize people, and she's related countless stories where this has happened, where she's found more than one spirit in a body. And through hypnosis, she's been able to talk to that spirit and convince it that it has died, that it does need to move on to the fine matter world and move on. The spirit does, and when the person comes out of hypnosis, the confusion is gone, and they're once again just a normal person. It's interesting also to think that quite often people who we think are insane or are just nuts might be invaded with more than one spirit. I understand it's possible there could be 3 spirits in a body at one time. Bill even remarked that in many cases where we think that people are retarded or nuts or stupid or something, these are just brand new spirits. These are spirits with no accumulated knowledge. So we have a few extra things we need to learn about this spirit thing. By the way, another little aside here, a spirit, as it goes through multiple lives and comes back, Semyasi commented that if you could see the spirit, that the face generally will always look the same. In the beginning development of any species, like in their first few lifetimes, most everyone looks pretty much the same because apparently they haven't lived enough lifetimes yet to accumulate enough wisdom, and our face does reflect something about our character and the wisdom that we have. So in the beginning stages of life, when you haven't lived too many lifetimes, everybody looks about the same. She said also that it's not a good idea to try to contact this fine matter world, that for the most part, the spirits over there would probably be confused by it anyway. They don't know any more than they did when they were in the physical world. It's not a creative world. For the most part, the fine matter world is just an energy state of cogitation. There is not creative thinking like there is on the physical plane. So they aren't gaining any new knowledge and information on that side. So they're not going to know any more than they did here. So you might as well just ask somebody on the street your questions. Don't expect that making any contact with the fine matter world is going to bring you any profound knowledge, because you're just talking to spirits that have died and they haven't gained any knowledge since they left. Also, they say it's just unhealthy. It's just not a good thing to even try to contact the fine matter world. And she remarked that most people who think they're doing it are not anyway. That very few people on our planet, there are very few mediums that really have the ability to do that most of them really aren't doing it. It is possible, though, she said, that there are some spirits worth contacting, and there are some things that can be learned. You want to be aware, though, of people who maybe have been a medium in this life, in the physical life, and when they pass over and on the fine matter world, they would still have the tendency and the idea that they still want to be that. And they would still be trying to fool people or trying to convince people that they know what they're talking about, just like they did when they were here. And if they were confused when they were in the physical world, they're still confused when they're over on the spirit side. So that's really not a good idea to even try to contact them. Billy asked again about the tape-recorded voices, that he's experimented with that, and a lot of people have, where you can turn a tape recorder on, and voices will appear on it, seemingly from out of nowhere. Well, she mentioned that sometimes those voices on a recording tape could be caused by cosmic travelers, higher advanced beings who normally use spiritual telepathy and or primary telepathy to communicate with one another or with beings here on the planet. Sometimes those thoughts can show up. But most of the time, the voice comes from the person who's actually running the tape recorder. Which is a pretty wild idea, because she mentioned that your thoughts as you're thinking can actually turn up on the tape recorder in the form of words. For instance, you may turn on a tape recorder and you're just setting